Mr. Gray. I am George Cervantes with Ford Dream Builders and Veterans Educating the Students, and I would like to ask you some questions today.
Sure.
All right, cool. Would you do us the favor of telling us your name, your branch, and where you grew up?
Okay. My full name is William Kent Gray. I go by my middle name of Kent. I was born and raised in Delano, California. Graduated from Delano High School in 1968. That was the only high school in Delano at the time. I joined the Navy in October of 1969, went to boot camp in San Diego, went to my first duty station in Charleston, South Carolina, aboard a tugboat. That was a lot of fun. Came back to the West Coast and went aboard the only nuclear-powered aircraft carrier at the time, the USS Enterprise.
Now that is sick. All right, but going back to the topic of Delano High School, what was Delano back in the day like? Was the football team pretty good?
Pretty good. Actually, Delano had a lot of good athletes back in those days, and of course I was one of them, but anyway. We had so much fun. Now this is back in the 60s. We had so much fun back in those days. It was just a different world then as well.
That's pretty cool. All right, so on the topic of the Navy, were you volunteered or conscripted?
No, I wasn't conscripted. I did join the Navy. We got to remember that back in 1969, Vietnam was pretty hot and heavy. And the draft was targeting 19-year-olds, which I was 19 at that time. And I kind of looked around, looked at the Air Force, decided not to go there, looked at the Marines for about 3 minutes, and then decided on the Navy, and that's where I went for 4 years. And actually, I'm glad I did, and I would do it again.
Heck yeah. Was there anything that really motivated you into joining the Navy compared to all the other branches?
Can't really remember. That was 50 plus years ago. It just had more appeal to me at the time than the other branches.
Yeah, being on a boat is pretty fun, I'd say.
No, it's a ship.
A ship.
Not a boat.
There we go.
A tugboat is a boat.
Cool.
And a submarine.
All right. So I know all the physical training between different branches is pretty different. So what was boot camp like for you?
It was pretty easy. Just a little while ago, I was talking to a couple other people here, and we were talking about the Navy boot camp and the Marine boot camp being right next door to each other in San Diego. The only thing that separated us was a fence, and we could actually see the Marines running through their obstacle courses while we were just standing around doing nothing. So it was quite a bit different than being in the Navy.
Yeah, and I suppose you had a lot of fun too.
In boot camp?
Yeah.
In boot camp?
Yeah.
Well, there were a couple of times, but boot camp is a life-changing experience for anybody, for all the branches, because that's what it's all about. It's to teach the ways of the military and to change a person's civilian way of thinking into being a military way of thinking. So it's quite a bit different than being in the military is just a whole way different of life.
Transitioning from boot camp to a tugboat, what was it like? What did you do on board the boat?
Well, on a tugboat, since it's such a small crew, everybody did pretty much everything. Since I was becoming an electrician, I worked a lot in the engine room, but I also helped out on deck securing lines when it came to moving some of the bigger ships like the destroyers, and actually helped cook a little bit too. So I actually got to drive the boat a couple of times.
Oh,
so
really?
We did everything. Now when I went to the Enterprise, whole different story.
Dang. So when you went from a tugboat to Enterprise, I know the Enterprise was this huge battleship. Would you actually like to show some pictures to us and stuff?
Well, here's one right inside the cover. if you can get that. Okay, I don't know how old this particular photo is, and let me take another look. Yes, it does have planes on board. So this was the USS Enterprise, as I mentioned, the first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier in the world, in the Navy, the largest ship of any kind when she was commissioned in November 1961, when all the air wings were on board, and including ship personnel, which I was. She carried about 5,000 personnel. So it is a floating city. And actually it was pretty good duty. I am very proud to know that I served on board that particular ship.
Cool. While on board the USS Enterprise, how many tours did you go on?
I only made one, what we call WestPac, or stands for Western Pacific, which of course, keep in mind that we left Alameda on September 12th, 1972. And Vietnam was still hot and heavy. President Nixon was still in office, and between September and December, I think it was, he ordered escalated bombing of North Vietnam. So we were, I remember that very clearly. And then in December 1972, we made one stop in Hong Kong. And then in March of '73, we made one stop in Singapore. And also, let me back up for just a moment. We were actually there, when I say there, I mean in the South China Sea, the Gulf of Tonkin, when the Vietnam Peace Treaty was signed in January 1973. And there was a ceremony that was conducted on the flight deck to commemorate the signing. And at the time, I didn't really think much about it. Well, now 50 some odd years later, I realized the significance of all of that. Our normal port of call was Subic Bay, Philippines. And if anybody out there that's watching this has any idea what Subic Bay was like back in those days, you'll know why I'm smiling.
All right, so I know you did serve in Vietnam, and I feel like a lot of people really forget what it was like for the Navy during Vietnam, because they actually played a huge role too. So what was it actually like taking place in the Vietnam War?
Well, even though I'm not a combat veteran and was never what we call in-country or boots on ground, it was still just knowing that we were there. And I can remember I used to watch a lot of flight ops. And we go up on one certain level and watch the planes launch, loaded with bombs, and when they came back, no more bombs. So we know that, the bombs had been dropped. And it was kind of thinking back on it now, just kind of a surreal experience, knowing that we were part of I can't call it a war because war was never declared. So a conflict, just knowing, and then knowing what was going on back here in the States with all the protests and everything. And it was just it was quite an experience. That's about the only way I can really describe it.
Dang. So you did talk about protests and stuff in the civilian world. So I'd like to know what it was like, because I know other branches like the Marines, the Army, came back and weren't really treated that well. Was it different from the Navy, or was it roughly the same?
Well, I do remember very clearly the day that we left on September 12th of 1972. There were several rowboats and dinghies, as I'll call them, in the bay. When I say bay, I mean San Francisco Bay, because the ship was home port in Alameda. And they were holding up signs, "Stop the baby killer," "Stop the killing machine," things of that sort. And there was I'm pretty sure it was a couple of Marine helicopters hovering over to keep them away from the ship. And I remember one of the boats actually capsized from the vortex of the plane, the blades from the helicopter. And I remember thinking, okay, like a 20 or 30 foot rowboat has a chance of stopping a 90,000 ton aircraft carrier, you know. However, on the opposite side of that, I clearly remember when we came home, which was on June 12th, 1973, when we went under the Golden Gate Bridge, there were actually people welcoming us home. Not a lot, but you know, we didn't know what to expect. And at the time, thank you. At the time, I didn't really think too much about it, but you know, over the years and realizing how the Vietnam veterans were treated when they came back, that was just really something that I'll never forget. They were actually welcome home, holding up signs, and you know, we always said, well, how did they know we were coming home today? You know, it's supposed to be a secret thing, but it never was. But anyway, yeah, that was quite an experience as well.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to have you here, and it's a blessing to have you here.
Thank you.
I'm glad that there were some people there to support you guys, because you guys did a lot for our country.
You want a tissue?
Don't worry, I'm okay. All right, so jumping from this topic, let's move on to something I know that you were talking about earlier called Kent TV. So would you like to tell us a little more about that?
Can I show a photo?
Heck yeah.
How much time do we have here? Okay. Okay. This particular photo, I don't know if you're going to be able to get this here. Okay, that is me. And that is doing a live newscast. We had a closed circuit TV and a radio station. It was all in one space. And I had my own radio show. We did live radio shows as well. Now, where it says Kent, that's actually just kind of an irony, because the K means that the ship was home ported west of the Mississippi at the time. And the E&T, of course, is the first three letters of the Enterprise. Now, when the ship was home ported on the East Coast at one time, it was went, because all TV and radio stations east of the Mississippi start with a W. Okay, I don't know if a lot of people don't even know that or never pay any attention, but that is true. So, but yep, that's me. And then I want to show this other one while we're
cool. Man, it must have been quite the coincidence being named.
It was. It was. Right here, this photo. This photo was taken in November 1972 in the Gulf of Tonkin. It has a significance because these were the only 4 nuclear-powered surface ships in the world at the time. Obviously, the Enterprise, the carrier, and then to its starboard side is the USS Long Beach, and then the other 2 are the Bainbridge and the Truxtun. And this was the only day that these 4 ships were together at one time. At one point, all 3 of these ships were our escort, not at the same time, but at least one of them was our escort, because aircraft carriers always have an escort. I'm sure they still do now. Okay, so this is, but now all aircraft carriers are nuclear powered. In fact, the next one that was built, that was actually under construction when this photo was taken, was the USS Nimitz, which was nuclear powered, and since then, all carriers have been nuclear powered.
I think I could see you right there, actually.
Yeah, there I am. Yeah.
That's pretty sweet. All right, so, you know, Vietnam veterans are always such a blast to talk to and all that. So I want to just let you know that we're all very proud to have you here. And
Thank you.
I hope that some of us can understand that you're here because of like a greater power such as God. So if that's okay with you, do you mind like telling us about your...
Well, I would have to choose Baptist. I mean, used to go to church way back in my younger days. I will admit I do not go to church on a regular basis, but I would just have to say Baptist.
Yeah, yeah. And I feel like religion has a really strong part of how we portray our lives. Did it really have any impact on your service?
No, I would have to say not that I can remember.
When you personally came back home, what was it really like kind of coming back into civilian life, like getting jobs, meeting other people and all that?
Well, first of all, I want to talk about the day we actually arrived home on September 12th, 1973. That was something I'll never forget. I remember, I clearly remember when we left in 9 months prior, and I told my wife, I said, okay, stand right here on the pier because I'm going to be standing right there on the flight deck when we get home. And so I had to go on board ship, and of course she was there, my dad, my sister, I don't remember, so I can't remember now who else was there. Waved, and I remember clearly, I know I'm getting off the subject here, but standing in that one spot right on the edge of the flight deck and looking at her until she literally got out of sight. And that's including going under both bridges, the Bay Bridge and the Golden Gate. And then when we came home, I stood in that one spot, and there she was, right where I told her to stand. And when the gangplanks were finally secured and the ship, they said, okay, you leave. I remember once I got down on the pier, I literally ran to her. And I can still remember her running to me.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
People do write letters back in the day and stuff during wars. Did you do that with your wife?
All the time.
Yeah.
Almost every day.
Oh, that's so sweet, man. We all need somebody to love. That's pretty cool.
And my parents too, of course.
Yeah. What was it like kind of coming back to your family? What was like life?
Well, in some ways it was almost like nothing ever changed because even though, we were gone for 9 months, we came back and we kind of looked around, well, yeah, that was there, oh, yeah. But being gone from family and friends and then coming back and seeing everybody, it's just an awesome experience. That's about the best way I can describe it. And I remember my mother crying when she saw me. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. All right, well, on the topic of family, we all do know that in the Army, Navy, Marines, we really build this bond with your brothers and stuff. So what was your brotherhood like?
I had a couple of really close friends, one in particular, and he actually came to see me once after I got out. And as the years have gone on, we've lost contact with each other. But there's a huge camaraderie amongst military people because you have to. Especially on board an aircraft carrier when you got 5,000 other guys and you can't go anywhere except on board ship. When you're at sea for 30 or 40 days, and
Yeah, it must have been pretty crazy having 5,000 people on one ship. I can't imagine. Did you know all those people?
No, but I did know quite a few. I don't know. Part of it's just my personality, and part is because since I was a shipboard electrician, I got to see quite a bit of the ship that a lot of other guys never did. Cool. And I just, got to be friends with a lot of different people and a lot of different divisions, as they're called, on board ship as well.
That's pretty sweet, man. So I am with Veterans Educating the Students, so I want to ask you this one big question. What is one thing you would really like a message to carry forward to our younger generations?
Well, first of all, I really am a firm believer that anybody that is physically capable of serving in the military for at least 2 years to do so, I wouldn't mind seeing the draft reinstated, to be honest with you. It's a life-changing experience. It makes people grow up. You know, you get to see the world in a whole different way, and you get to see the world as well. Yeah. I still remember a couple of years ago we had a special veterans event at, oh my God, I can't even remember, one of the grammar schools. And we were sitting on the stage, and this one young boy asked me something, I forget now what it was, asked me something about being in the Navy. And then he said, well, would you recommend that I join the Navy? And I said, I would recommend that you join any branch of the military. And all the other veterans on stage nodded their head in agreement. Just basically any branch. Yeah. It is a different way of life, but I think it's a good experience.
Heck yeah. It really does create something that we can all bond over and grow up with.
Yep.
So it's pretty cool. So I'm going to have to thank you, Mr. Gray.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
And actually have something for you.
Oh, my goodness.
Heck
Okay,
yeah.
little ditty bag is what we call it.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, it's heavy, too. Okay. Oh,
I have
water.
no idea what's in there.
Yeah, okay. All right.
All right, cool.
Thank you, everybody.
Great.